2020. This is Angela Hooper Minifield of Minifield and Associates, and we're here today for our HR moment. As I'm sure you can see, I am not in my normal routine. I'm actually sitting in a car in the parking lot outside of, I think the name of the store is Strikes or Strand Van, something. I don't know. I'm in Indiana still with my mom, taking care of some business and also been visiting family. But true to our requirements, today is Monday, so I'm here back for our HR moment. And so um, it says some of my destinations have errors. So, okay. All right. So, anyway, today's HR moment, we're going to talk a little bit about noncompliance. And I've seen this be an issue a lot, especially because right now in many states, and right now I'm in Indiana, and of course it's a mandate just like it was in Jersey that people wear a mask. And it's interesting that employees are struggling, managers are struggling. And I was actually talking to a hiring manager this past week of a security company when I was in Memphis. And she was even sharing with me that hiring and the need for security officers has actually increased during COVID. And as we began to have this conversation, a lot of it was obvious because people are needing to enforce policies and procedures, and employees are cautious about doing it. Supervisors are cautious about doing it with the employees. And a lot of it is because people become highly confrontational and argumentative because many people find the rules to be burdensome. But this isn't just something that shows up right now because of COVID, right? Because I am of the opinion, and I could be wrong, that some of the same people who have issues with the rules and procedures as it pertains to wearing masks or doing things like that have issues with other rules, right? I don't think in general that people wake up with these issues. And so as a supervisor, you might find that you're trying to enforce a rule, whether it's a rule or a policy that, people must sign in, or if it's a policy on how you want people to handle documentation. And what can happen is everybody doesn't want to follow it. And so, because sometimes we avoid confrontation, and that's very common, because we have to ask ourselves, is it worth it? Is the outcome or the gain going to serve the higher good? Is it worth it? And so oftentimes we let things slip. But when we let things slip, of course, the bigger issue then becomes, is this an acknowledgement that the policy is not something that we really want to enforce, or that it should be enforced, I guess? And I just want to remind us as supervisors, especially managers, leaders, and supervisors, that it is important that we decide whatever our policies are going to be, that we make a conscious decision that these are going to be the policies. And if these are going to be the policies, then as a result of such, we agree that they're enforceable. Because you may have heard me say it before, and I'll say it again. I think the worse than not having a policy is having one that you won't enforce. And so, whatever that is, and especially now, right? Like, if you are only putting the sign up, for instance, in your place of business, so that if the officials came by, they would see you were compliant, but you're really not enforcing it, I think it's a bad look. And it's also a bad look for shoppers and people like me who want to carefully visit and go to places that are enforcing the safety guidelines as prescribed. The other thing that I find issue with, and I see it in Jersey, I've seen it since I've been here in Indiana, but the policies are on the door or on the wall, but the employees are not following them. So then it even makes me wonder, like, what else is happening in this business when nobody else is looking? Because if while we're in here, you're taking your mask off, or you're not, sanitizing and doing those things, then what are you doing when we're not here? Which makes me wonder, is this a place I want to return? And so again, we have to ask ourselves, what how do we deal with it? So compliance first has to start with us. But let's say you are doing it right and you politely ask people to do their part and they give you, some, as I would say, lip service, for lack of a better word, and become belligerent. I would highly recommend that you not debate it and not get into it. You do what you need to do in order to maintain safe. If you do have security in your place of business, then you should definitely utilize it for things like that. If people become too confrontational, of course, there's always the police. But as a manager and a leader in an organization, I've always felt that I owed it to my employees to keep them safe. And that's also safe from the public as well as their peers. And so I never had an expectation that they would deal with argumentative and hostile people. When people begin to use foul language and talk to you out of order, you can just basically say something like, you know what, it's clear that this conversation is not going to be productive. So, you know, in respect to both of us, I think we should just end it now, and then you end it. Again, if they want to push it and keep going, there should be some safety protocols in place on how to deal with violent and hostile individuals. But never as an employee and never as a supervisor or manager should we expect our team to have to deal with belligerent people. They didn't sign up for that. Again, unless that's our role, like security, the police and things like that. Like, they are trained to deal with stuff like that. Employees should not have to deal with that. It's no different. Like, I remember when I even worked for the government, like, there were, ironically or not, you guys are probably going to find this funny when I say this, but like, I got cursed out one time by a farmer because he said his grades were wrong, right? Because we did grading of agricultural commodities, which led to the pricing to sell those commodities. And he said the data was wrong, and guy just started ripping into me and accusing me of not knowing what I was doing. I mean, he ripped into me pretty good, and I waited a few seconds. I let him get a little bit of it out, and I just said, okay, so I realize you don't know me very well, but I don't use profanity. As such, I don't expect anybody to use it with me. So you and I will end this conversation now. And when you calm down and you feel like we can talk about this in a more calm, professional way, I would love to continue the conversation and continue the dialogue. And then I hung up the phone. He called my boss and said I hung up on him. Now, he left the part out about how he was acting a fool, right? And there was some other dynamics going on there, right? I mean, I do realize I was new. I was also the first woman of color or air director, and I was dealing in a 98%, white male field. So there was, and he, referred to me with some other words that, that black girl is really what he said, did this, that, and the other. So my point is this: after that happened, it never happened again because a couple of things happened. One, word got out real quick that, hey, she don't put up with that. But the second part of it was, I think we get to create standards. So even, and I've had jobs where I've dealt with the public. I've worked at Radio Shack once. I know I'm dating myself now because most of you are like, what's Radio Shack? So, angry customers. I did telemarketing. Like, I've been, talked to pretty harshly in many jobs, but it never resulted in me doing the same thing back. And it always left me with the verbiage that, I understand you're upset. It's not my intent to upset you. However, I'm also not going to be talked to this way. There was one time in particular, I was at work and a lady parked in the wrong spot, and I asked her to move her car. And she actually had kids in the car with her, and there was a big sign that says, no parking here. That woman called me for everything she could, and ironically, my daughter was in the car because I think I was coming back by the office, and I've just always felt if somebody's breaking a rule, and it's I feel ownership, so I say something. And so my daughter was like, Mama, she cursed you out. And I said, yeah, it's okay. She said, you didn't say anything back. I said, well, basically what I said was she still need to move her car. I mean, when the words were all done, she still was in the wrong spot. So either she could move it or we could tow it. I mean, her getting angry wasn't changing the outcome. But I think that was a good illustration for her, even her at that time, that we don't have to act that way. So when people won't be compliant, again, I think we have to train our team, train our supervisors that it's not their role to argue and force people to follow the rules. It's our role to point out what the rule is. And I thought about recently, well, when we were still having, concerts and things like that, one of the things I do as a volunteer, I volunteer at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, and I'm an usher. Well, not an usher, excuse me. I am a proctor, I think is what they call us. But because we're volunteers and the ushers are paid. But nonetheless, often when you go to concerts, it may say, no recording of the artist. And of course, everybody has their phones out. And I remember asking one of my peers, I was like, aren't we supposed to stop these people? Because they just told us no recording. And they're like, I'm not saying anything. And I'm like, well, I just can't sit here and let these people break the rules. So I just tapped the people on the shoulder. I said, excuse me, you may not be aware. However, the artists have asked that we not record. And 9 out of 10 times, they put their phones up. I've never had anybody be disrespectful to me or clown me, but I also think it's because I treat them with dignity and respect, and I just try to just point out what the rules are. Now, often they'll say, well, other people are doing it. And I'm like, well, when I get down there, I'll tell them to stop too. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to snatch the phone out of anybody's hand and force them to not record. If it continues to be a problem, we have paid people and security there that could even escort them out or ask them to leave. But my point is, I've always found when being respectful and just asking people to do it, I get better results. And then there are some people who just won't do the right thing and they don't care. But it's not my job to fight them or argue with them. And so, again, we have teams, we have supervisors, we have people that have to deal with noncompliance. And right now, one of the biggest issues, if we have an organization where masks are required and the public has access to us, a lot of our team members are struggling with either asking their peers to adhere to these policies and procedures, because I'm hearing it all the time, or asking customers. But again, it's not your responsibility to fight with people, to argue with them, but sit down and create some protocol or SOPs about how we're going to do what we're going to do. And when people are not compliant, what's the next step? But also, as an employee, I would feel, and I'm just saying what I would feel, not trying to create confusion. If people won't follow the rules, then I also don't have to service them. Right. So if they're coming into our place of business and they won't do what we've asked them to do, then I won't service them, because there is some order and structure. And again, non-compliance happens every day. And more times than not, and again, there are always exceptions, that the people who are not compliant over here, I bet I could find another 5 to 10 things that they also don't comply with. Right. Because there is this mindset of, I get to do what I want to do. And, rules only matter when I want other people to follow them, right? Like everybody wants rules for everybody else. So, as leaders, as supervisors, as managers, again, we have to train our team how to deal with that in a way that's non-confrontational, but that also keeps them safe from harm. Because again, nobody should have to come to work and be disrespected. So, I leave you with that. Again, unconventional HR moment, as you see. I'm in the car taking my mother to run errands. But it's Monday, so we have to do our HR moment from Minifield and Associates. I hope everybody is well. I've kind of been disconnected for the last week, and so I go back to Jersey tomorrow. But I look forward to getting back into the routine of things, back to coaching and training and all those great things. What you say, Kenrick, so true. It's not your job to get control of someone else. Definitely, definitely. You're so true, because again, people are adults. So our job is to tell them what the rules are. Either they follow them or they don't. But we do make sure that we tell them. But we also don't want our managers and our team members to be shy of telling people what the rules are out of fear of what will happen. So give them a way to do it professionally, and then support them when people don't comply. The worst thing that can happen is also they try to enforce the rule, and then the customer or the client complain to you as the leader, and then you don't back the employee. You tell the customer, oh, that's okay, don't worry about it, you don't have to do it. Again, if it's not a rule, then take it down. And if it is a rule, let's enforce it. But again, teach people how to deal with noncompliance. What we don't want to do is ignore it. Ignoring it gets us nothing but more non-compliance, because again, what the messaging is, we don't follow the rules here and the rules don't matter. And so people will do what they want to do. But you say, Kenrick, you can't make your ego the most important thing either. Oh, so true. So true. Thanks for watching, and thanks for watching live. Like I said, this is unconventional. Actually, the first time I've ever used StreamYard on my phone. So I'm happy to see it works okay. I think it didn't show up on LinkedIn, but I think it showed up everywhere else. So anyway, thanks again for watching. My name is Angela Hooper Minifield, and this is your HR Moment from Minifield and Associates. And we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Take care. Bye.